Welcome back to Elevate Your Business, a podcast where we discuss proven, transformative approaches to business growth and exit strategies. Join us as we talk to successful entrepreneurs, share new and profitable ideas, and help you grow wiser and wealthier so you can experience limitless success in both life and business. Now, here's your host, Adam Koós, business transition consultant and founder of Elevate and Exit at elevateandexit.com.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Thanks so much for joining us today. As always, let's get started with a few housekeeping items. If this is your first time listening or watching, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you can find us on Twitter, or X as they call it these days, as well as Instagram and Facebook at Elevate and Exit. And of course, the best place to go for more videos, articles, podcasts, screencasts, links, visuals, charts, and all those kinds of educational resources is elevateandexit.com. So enough of that crappy housekeeping. Today, I'm a really, really special guest. I'm excited to have a truly inspiring guest, I'll say, on the show. And Shelly Peterson, she's the president of Kahuna Investments. She's got a pretty amazing journey. In fact, I wish we would have hit record a little earlier because I feel like you shared so much offline. But she transitioned from a successful, really successful career in pharmaceutical sales to managing over $250 million in real estate assets. Her passion for building strong relationships with investors, combined with her commitment to empowering women to take control of their financial future, makes her a standout in the world of passive real estate investing. And she's going to share her wealth of knowledge today, some actionable insights that you can use right away, that I'm sure is going to leave all of us pretty motivated. Now, the trick, of course, is staying motivated, right? But let's dive into her amazing story here, learn more about the art of investor relations, financial independence, and how she got to where she is today. And before we even get started, I have to say she's giving away a free book. So if the book is called Trust But Verify, if you want to hold it up to the screen for those of you watching on YouTube, just text TRUST. So text the word TRUST to 480-500-1127. Again, that's text TRUST to 480-500-1127, and you will get this free book sent to you. So let's just jump right in, Shelly.
Yeah.
I want to know right off the bat how you go from making great money and having a successful career, in pharmaceutical sales, to obviously it didn't go from 0 to 250 overnight, but managing over $250 million in real estate. I mean, that's remarkable. So what inspired you, or what events transpired that made you make such a huge career shift? And how would you say your experience in pharma, were there any lines of comparison maybe that helped, shape your approach to real estate investing?
That is a freaking fantastic question, Adam. First and foremost, I'm just so tickled pink just to be here. You make me sound so wonderful. So thank you for that amazing introduction, Adam. So long story short, I always say the journey is the reward. And so if you're a business owner out there, if you're feeling the hustle and grind and it gets tiring, you have to remember that the journey is the reward first and foremost. You're going to have peaks and valleys. You're going to have some lows. I know that COVID kicked people in the teeth. I know as a multifamily, especially 70% of our portfolio was student housing, it kicked our butt. So I can share with you on how we overcome some of those difficulties. But yeah, my background's pretty simple. I'm an Okie from heart, just like Adam here, Taekwondo. I love martial arts. I love karaoke. I love dancing. I actually met my husband in a karaoke bar years ago. So we've been together for 25 years.
What were you singing?
I'm an 80s person, Adam. So I like a little Pat Benatar. So
you're not
a little
messing
hit me
around.
with your best shot. That is my signature warm-up song.
That's just the warm-up. We're in trouble. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's just my warm-up, my friend. But yeah, so 25 years ago, we went to the Hawaiian Islands, and I don't know if any of your listeners have been to Hawaii. It is still by far my favorite place in the whole wide world. And at the time, Corey's stepdad owned a beautiful home on the beach. If you guys were to see this house, we're like, wow, what does your dad do? Come to find out, he was a multifamily investor. He owned a lot of property. So we left the island thinking, wow, your dad is the big kahuna. And about 6 months later, read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And Corey goes, well, what should we name our company? And I said, I don't know. What do you think? He goes, well, I want to be the big kahuna one day. I said, well, giddy up, Daddy. Let's Kahuna Investments it is. Now, during this whole time, Adam, I've always been the type of partner where I really believe in my spouse. I'm like, you know what? If this is what you want to do, I'm going to stick in my corporate American world, right? Because I love what I did. I have a science background. I was in the pharmaceutical industry since 2003, and I just climbed that corporate ladder. So for those that have transitioned from corporate to being a business owner, that can be quite a scary thing. And I made great money. At my peak, I was making well over six figures and big bonuses. But with that, I travel quite a bit. And during that time, when we transitioned into the multifamily space, I didn't have to work. We had a big win. We bought a 144 unit property in Greenville, South Carolina. We bought it for 3.2 million, raised 1.4 million of other people's money, and we held on to that property, operated it for 5 years, and we sold it for 8.6 million. Now we owned 75% of the GP at the time, so that was a big windfall of money for us. And during that time, Adam, the decision, I'm going back to your question, how did that transition occur? Well, it wasn't my decision. It was the company's decision. See, if you're in corporate America, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, you get really good at one thing, and that is interviewing for the next job because it's such a volatile industry. And during that time in 2016, I get this call from corporate, and they were shutting down the sales and marketing team. So there was no more company. Now,
Wow.
over those years of being laid off, probably 8 or 9 times in my career in pharma, this time was different because we exited out of a big deal and I didn't have to work anymore. So Mama Kahuna was officially retired in 2016. So 2016, I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do? Okay, well, there's only so many girls' lunches you can do, hang out with your kids, do whatever you want, but I was not fulfilled. And Corey recognized, he said, you know what, you are a working woman. You know that you're meant for more. And he said, why don't you just do real estate with me? And I said, absolutely not. I have a medical background, just like you, Adam. You had that medical background. I said, well, that's just my whole world. My identity was wrapped around that. And I think a lot of time as business owners, whatever your previous life was, it's very difficult to make that shift because it's an identity shift, right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I started plugging in. I started plugging in into the real estate game. I started going to all the conferences. I started surrounding myself with multifamily rock stars. And then something magical happened in 2017. We launched our own education platform. And over the years, I started learning how to acquire multifamily. I learned how to underwrite multifamily. I learned every nuts and bolts that were required. And, lo and behold, I'm like, wow, I actually know what I'm talking about. And so what I was really good at, because of my pharmaceutical background, I was accustomed to talking to doctors. My strength was talking to potential passive investors, vetting them. I wanted to know who they were, what their appetite for investing was, and really building a relationship and showing them what Kahuna has to offer for them to protect, grow, and save taxes on their money. And so that's the gist of it. And here I am today. Not only do I handle the investor relations piece, but we just launched another facet of our business called Kahuna Management, where you're actually operating our $250 million portfolio. We decided that a little less than 2 years ago. And we said, we'll never do it. Adam, we told ourselves we will never, ever manage our properties. But at the end of the day, you will find that third-party management, this is what Corey says, they all suck. They all suck. And the reason for that is because they fee you to death. And the challenge with third-party management is that your staff on the property, they're torn because they want to listen to dad, who's the owner, but mom, who is the company that's paying their paycheck. So what do? So now we are one team, one family, and we're all growing in the same boat. So it's just been very, very rewarding, but at the same time, we have learned quite a bit over the past couple of years.
Next thing you know, you're going to buy a property and casualty insurance company so you can insure all your own properties too.
Man, I tell you what, I can't. Don't give me any ideas, Adam.
Call me when you do it. Mark my words.
Listen,
well, you've been changing gears here a little bit. You've been a big, strong, huge advocate for empowering women in their financial journeys, especially through, passive real estate investing. What would you say are some of the most important steps women specifically can make to take control or just gain control of their financial future? Well,
number one, I believe wholeheartedly, if you're spouse is running the finances, that's fine, but you need to be very aware. So that's number one, just being conscious of what you're spending. I'm a big advocate of, now I like my designer purses, I like nice things, but at the end of the day, Adam, what really is sexy for us gals is when we put money into something that's making us money. So that's first and foremost, is changing their mind, their shift in their mindset and saying, okay, if I buy this, is it making me money? So getting women in the habit of starting to invest. So I have a girlfriend, I'll give you a quick story. I've known her for 17 years and she's watched me grow my business, and she's a nurse. And I love the fact that she has seen me acquire properties and watching. She actually worked with us when we had our single family fix and flip business, and she saw the power of leveraging other people's monies, leveraging on buying real estate and what it can do for you in terms of tax savings, cash flow, all the above. And so she is right now, she is purchasing her third property. And I just, I can't help but to think that I had a big part of that and watching her grow. She's like, listen, I want to be able to do, girl stuff with you, girls trip. And I want to get out. I just want to start growing my wealth. And I think it's a topic that most women are not really comfortable talking about because it's very private. Money is very private. But I'm a big advocate of saying, ladies, if you listen, you need to start growing your money, protecting your money, growing your money, buying things that's going to make you money. And, and there's so many avenues. You have a lot of business owners that come on this podcast where they can make money. There's so many ways, especially in the world that we're living in with AI and the technology. It's insane what you can purchase and invest your money in these days. So that's what I would share. I've spoken on stage about this subject. I'm actually going to ASU in a few days to talk about this particular topic. But I love watching women taking control of their finances and really partnering up with their partner and just doing it together. Corey and I have always been one team in one direction. So for those that are in partners with their spouse, that's a whole nother podcast, Adam.
I was going to say that's a whole new episode altogether. Yeah. Working with your spouse, right?
Working with your spouse and staying in love.
And staying in love and avoiding homicide. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, not just women, obviously, but
right.
Passive investing is something that's attractive to a lot of people. Obviously, the end result's attractive, right? Having passive income when it's just kind of hitting your bank account every month. But it can be, I think, pretty overwhelming for beginners, people trying to get started. So what advice would you have for individuals who are just starting to explore passive real estate investments? What advice would you give them? Because obviously nobody starts at 250 million, right?
Oh, I know. Well, I would say it depends what they want to passively invest in. Now, I could speak on terms of multifamily. So perhaps they want to, if you're young, like I'll give you an example. My son I'm an empty nester, Adam. He just graduated high school. He's going into real estate school. And he said, Mom, I want to, buy some duplexes and I want to live in one side and rent out the other side. I think that's a great way for young people to get started is to save up their money for the down, right? And start, if they go to real estate school, they have an advantage because now they can go and look on the MLS and see if they have any deals that they can buy, or they can research the market where they want to purchase their asset. So for my son, he's like, I want to buy in Tempe because I want to rent out to college students. And I'm thinking, this kid is barely 19 years old and he's already saved up, he saved up quite a bit of money.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm very proud of him. I'm like, good job, son. But of course, he lets mom pays for everything. So there's one good, and here's the other thing. If you're young, if you have kids, let them stay at home as long as they can. I don't know what it is, but typically when they turn 18, they're like, get out of my house. I'm trying to set up my kids to where they make as much money, they can live at home because I want to set them up for success. So I would say for young people, start there, partner up, find JV, but more importantly, Adam, I really think you need to do your due diligence and find the things that you want to invest in. If you have an interest in real estate, invest in real estate. If it's gold or silver, do your due diligence. And you probably, just like you are researching things that are making you money, right? So that's a very good question. And I think there's so many vending machines, ATM machines, but Again,
Sure,
if you don't have a lot of money to start with, how do you do that? And I always say that, people that can command money, that can control money, that knows how to raise capital, it's huge. Because a lot of times people think that the money is in real estate. They're like, oh, well, the money's in real estate. I'm going to give you a nice little secret. And you probably already know this, Adam, but most people don't know this. Really, the money is in the money, if you think about it.
hmm
Right. So I'm already telling you things that you probably have heard that slogan before, but it's so powerful. So if you have, if you can, acquire it, cash flow, and just, rinse and repeat, you'll do very well.
Yep. Compounding interest, cash flow. And I always say money is a unit of choice. The more units you have, the more choices you have.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that. I'm going to steal that one.
It's the way the quote starts is money is not the root of all evil. It's a unit of choice. It's people with the more units you have, the more choices you have. And that's what life's all about. Choices and freedom, right? As much
That
as
is
possible anyway.
fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what? You're the first person that I've heard say that. I like that. I like it.
Well, with 250 million under management, which is a lot, obviously,
Mhm.
how do you ensure that you're delivering a high level of service, maintaining communication with all your investors, given that size of a portfolio? Maybe you can explain, what white glove service means to you in this context.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because I have a visual aid to show you.
Uh-oh,
All right. So,
pictures.
we do a vetting process here at Kahuna. We want to make sure it's the right fit for the investor first and foremost. And so when we do our underwriting, we make sure that, the way that we underwrite our deals is that it's designed to where the passive investor gets paid before the sponsor group, before Kahuna.
Makes
Okay. So
sense.
that's nothing new. We do monthly communications. We have an investor portal where they can simply log in, they can see their distributions, they can get their K1s at the end of the year. Everything that they need to know about that investment is on their investor portal, which is a bank grade, just like such as yourself, what you use for your investors. It's the same process. The only difference is our asset is real estate, and the type of asset that we buy are a minimum of 100 units or more. They're going to be Class A or B properties. Some of them are student housing, some are multifamily. But one of the core values that we believe in Kahuna is transparency. And when I say transparency, they receive what's called a financial dashboard every month. So this particular property, Carolina Creek, which is a 517-bed property, you're going to find our investors are able to see everything they need to know what's going on at that property, income statements, bank statements, rent roll, everything they need to know about that property, all the way down full financial accounting. How much money is being spent, what checks are being written. And I will tell you, if you're out there looking to passively invest with other owner operators, that's one of the questions you should be asking these operators. Talk to me about how, you communicate with the passive investors. Do you provide full financial accounting? I will tell you, it's pretty shocking. I was on stage talking to about 300 people about this whole process. At the end of my talk, I had a passive investor said, Shelly, I am in 9 separate deals with 3 different GPs as an LP investor. I said, oh, that's great. He said, not one of them has a financial reporting that's as robust as yours. And
Hmm.
that hurts my heart because it should be the gold standard across the industry, but it's not. So for your listeners that are looking to dive into real estate or looking to get into this industry, that is the one thing that they really need to pay attention to. Because as a partner, even though you're a passive investor in our deal, we're running the deal, you're still a partner with us in those deals, right? And
Yeah.
so you should have access to everything with what's going on at that property. But on the flip side, then let's fair balance this a little bit. You're also in the nitty gritty with us. So if COVID hits, for example, student housing property, and you're in this deal, do you have, one of the questions I have to ask them is, are you in it with us? So let's say something weird happens at the property and you don't get a distribution because of COVID, because of a pandemic. Are you okay, working with us? Do you have the trust that we're going to get out of this, out of that difficult time? And so the last thing you want to do, as an operator, you don't want to have an investor that's just because here's the thing that I always tell them, like, well, if you want me to sell your shares, if you want to get out of this deal, not a problem. I'll just see if another investor wants to take your shares, but you're not going to get your bonus back in at the end of the 5-year hold of the deal. And so, I always say, for those that are listening and for those that are looking in to get passive income, especially in the multifamily space, to really do your due diligence. And I know that you offered up my Trust But Verify book. It will give you some really good tips on what to look for and what not to look for.
Okay. Now, a lot of these people who are looking to get into real estate are probably have another career, right? They're probably doing something else full time. And then for you, transitioning from, a scientific corporate environment, which is, maybe not scientific for everybody, but corporate probably, to real estate, it must have required significant mindset and skill set shifts to a certain extent. As you make a transition like this, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges you faced during the transition, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Me personally, how to overcome going from corporate America to a real estate career.
Yep.
I think it was really just what was between my 2 ears. It was a mind shift. And I will say the more that you empower yourself to get into that industry, I mean, for me, it was the reason why I was afraid. I didn't think I would do well in what I'm doing now is because I had zero knowledge. I didn't understand what half the time they were talking about. I would go to a real estate conference and I'm like, what the hell is a freaking cap rate? What's an NOI? Like what's a PSA? Like what the hell are they talking about, Adam?
Yeah.
It was such a foreign language to me. You have to understand my world was women's health. I dealt with estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. I dealt with the product circular. Everything in my brain screamed science, screamed medical. To me, real estate was a completely different jargon. I mean, you might as well just throw me into law school because I was completely lost for the first year. I'm like, I had no interest. I thought it was boring. I'm like, this is horrible. Why would anybody want to do this? This is just, and you know what? Shame on me. I thought I was beneath that, or I thought I was above that too, because I was always around doctors and, the medical field. And there was a certain type of professionalism that came in that industry. And I just, I was the best at what I did. I mean, I took a district, and let me tell you, there was 9 ladies, and I travel a lot in the West Coast. They called this group, the other managers, the other, leadership would call this, oh, well, Shelly, you're getting the whiny West. And I'm like, well, why are they whiny? They're like, they complained. They were like ranked at the very bottom of the company. And so I knew the first thing I had to do was rebrand these ladies and say, you're no longer the whiny West. What do we want to name our district? So we ended up being known as the Firecrackers. And so that was our district name. And I will tell you, and within a year, less than 2 years, I had 2 out of the 9 reps win winner circle. We were ranked the #1 district in the whole company. And so you asked about how I transferred those types of skills into the real estate world. Now I'm managing, a portfolio that has 57 employees. So how do you instill that type of culture into your company? And that's the fun part. I will say that I love people, Adam. My team affectionately calls me Mama Kahuna. So when I walk onto a property, like, a lot of times when business owners step onto a property, the staff gets pretty spooked. They're like, oh gosh.
Sure.
Yeah. But when I step on, they're like, Mama Kahuna's here. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Because they know that it's going to be like Christmas when I show up. I love on them. I encourage them. I motivate. I inspire. And that's the difference. If you're running a business, you have to ask yourself, are you managing the people or are you leading the people? And there's a huge difference.
That's a good quote. That's quotable, I think. Yeah.
Oh, use it anytime.
That's good stuff. You can have the money's unit of choice quote, and I'll take that one.
Okay, perfect. We'll do a swap. So yeah, I mean, I think it just, I had to submerge myself. And then at some point I had to say, I want to be all in. Because oftentimes you'll have one foot, in the door and out the door. And this is what I told my regionals. I said, ladies, I said, you're either with us or you're not with us. I said, if you have one foot in the door and one foot out, there's no business of you being here at Kahuna. Because I need you to be all in. Are you all in? Where you need to be driving the boat together. And we are starting to see a huge shift in our company because of that, because leadership starts from the very top as the owner, and then you have to train your leadership team to where it trickles down. I was going out to the properties, Adam, and this was a shocker to me because they didn't know our mission statement. They didn't know our core values. They did not know the Kahuna way. And I said, honey, there is a problem that we have in our organization. This needs to be fixed immediately. And so what do? More training, right? Start from the
Hmm.
top. Ladies,
Communicate.
and then every meeting, we start off, what's the Kahuna way? What's our core values? What's our mission statement? And we have to breathe this stuff, Adam. We have to win hearts and minds when you're a business owner, especially if you have employees. That's very important.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes was by the LinkedIn CEO, for business owners, that is, and where he said that starting a business is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down, which is pretty much how it feels. Um,
Yeah,
but
that's
I got one
exactly it. Mine's a parachute. I'm just trying to get a
parachute.
parachute,
There
man.
we go. Keep it easy, right? Just soft
Soft
landing.
landing,
Yeah.
something.
Well, one last question for you here. Your journey has obviously been one of embracing new opportunities, involving your career, involving the business, Kahuna. What's next for Kahuna Investments? What emerging trends in real estate are you most excited about going forward?
Oh gosh. Well, in Q1, we're going to launch a Kahuna fund. It's going to have 50 million in this fund to where we are going to acquire assets in my backyard in Phoenix, Arizona, and in Texas, specifically around San Antonio. Right now, I always say as a business owner, we're in operations hell. If you are in property management and if you're a new property management company, you're going to see all the growth, the aches and pains that come with that territory. So I've made the switch to jump over on the KM side to really get that ball rolling. But in Q1, I'm hopping back over on the KI side, which is my role that I originally was in. Is just working with passive investors. So we'll open up the Kahuna Fund come in Q1, and then we're going to start back in acquisition mode in Q1 of 2025, which is going to be really exciting. So our team's
Yeah.
excited. We will be exiting probably out of 2 or 3 of our deals in 2025. So that will be exciting as well. And the goal is, right now we're just we call it, what do you call it? Economy of scale, just scaling for growth. Just try not to grow too fast, but just
Yep.
growing at the right pace.
Grow
And
smart.
so
Yeah.
during this whole process, we've had to get really ninja on how we hire appropriately. I told you earlier that we have a 4-step process here at Kahuna, and there's a book. If you haven't read it, it's the CEO does 3 things, and it talks about a
Hmm.
hiring process in
I'll write that
there,
down.
and it's called the 4 C's. You talk about your culture on the first interview. The second interview is all about the competency. You're asking the candidate if
That's
they,
Dan
yeah,
Sullivan, actually.
yes, he was
Yeah,
actually. We met him at a
he's
conference.
great. He's
Oh yeah,
great.
he's fantastic.
His book, Who Not How, and 10X is
Yeah.
Easier Than 2X. Those are great books, life
Oh,
changing.
yeah. Yeah. So, readers are leaders. If you're not plugging in, make sure that you're plugging into every book. If you're a new business owner, I mean, if you haven't read Traction, that's like, I guess
Oh
that's the
yeah,
Bible. So,
Flywheel.
yeah, Rocket Fuel. There's so
Yep,
many
Gino.
dysfunctions of a team. I love that one. The 5 dysfunctions of a team. If you haven't read that one yet, that one's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to check
Um,
that out.
yeah, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. That's a great book. There's just so much to keep yourself plugged in. I forgot the question, Adam. See, this is what
No, you're fine. I
happens.
was just talking about what's next. Just whether it
What's
be,
next? Yep,
you
we're
already
going to
mentioned
launch.
what's next for Kahuna. So, anything you see on the landscape of real estate in general that you see is changing? Anything emerging there?
You
Sectors, anything
know,
like that?
that's a tricky one because you don't really know. I mean, I would say just get to know your markets. Really know what areas you want to invest in. Know that area, and it really depends on the election too. Especially in our space, everybody's a little bit kind of
Well, nerves, yeah,
apprehensive of how this election is going to go.
for
For
sure.
us, we got nailed on interest rates rising. And like, thank God we had a cap rate on all of our properties because it helped us with that delta of the
Yeah.
increasing of interest rates. Insurance. I will give you an example. We bought a property this year. We got it at REO. It was one of our smaller properties. It's called The Hill, that's in Georgia. And we bought it for, only 8 million. It's one of our smaller deals that we bought, but it was located right next to a property we already own. So it made sense for us to acquire this deal. It's worth 9 when we bought it. That's what it appraised for. But the bank, when they owned this property, the insurance on that, they're only paying 30 grand a year. But when we acquired the deal, do you know how
Hmm.
much Kahuna's cost was for insurance?
What's
60
that?
grand,
Wow.
60,000 a year. So you're like, what the heck? So If you are an owner operator of multifamily and you're doing the underwriting, make sure you know your insurance numbers. You just cannot trust. We said, oh, well, we actually upped it a little bit more because we're like, well, maybe it's going to be more than 30 grand. We did not know it was going to just double. So just pay attention to those little things because it'll get you.
In my industry, we call that past performance is not indicative of future results, right?
Boom.
All right. Well, that's our time for today. Don't forget the free book, Trust But Verify. Just text the word trust to 480-500-1127. Again, that's text trust to 480-500-1127. If you'd like to get a hold of Shelly, you can find her on LinkedIn. That's probably one of the easiest ways, but really the easiest way is to go to kahunainvestments.com. You're also going to find all kinds of other links and contact info in the show notes below. As always, I always say, there's thousands and thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to give ours a listen today. So thank you so much for tuning in. And since I went on my honeymoon to Maui, and then we went on the baby moon to Kauai, we have to end with a little hand wave.
Hey!
So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To complete our free business valuation quiz or to set up an introduction call, just head over to elevateandexit.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, tax, or as a basis for investment decisions. Always consult a professional business transition planning consultant or a certified exit planning advisor before implementing any of the ideas shared in this episode.